Hello and welcome to a review of Veronica Mars. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And this week we're discussing the episode President Evil. This episode originally aired October 31st, 2006. Let us go to the number one film at the box office this weekend, David. Any guesses?
On that time,
Yes.
two things that were released around then.
So we're going for the weekend after this, so it would be the one after Halloween. Just to keep that in mind.
Okay.
It's quite a well-known film, but I don't know if you've seen it.
And well known. Okay, double checking with that.
It's a mockumentary, if that helps.
Oh, there's a case that shoot, like the image of the particular character is like right in my head, but the name is escaping. Like something at
Borat.
No, that's it. Borat.
Yeah, it's Borat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the crazy thing is just with the amount of times I've heard the jokes and whatnot while it was kind of coming out, don't think I ever took the time to look into the movie.
It's fine, I guess. I wasn't a big fan, but okay.
No, it's understandable, but still, it was a. I don't know if it was quite up to the case of phenomenon, but it was most certainly a thing.
Yes, it was a very big deal when it came out. Moving on, number one song in America, it is still Moneymaker by Ludacris featuring Pharrell, which that's good for people who like that.
Yeah.
Moving on to video games, we have some interesting stuff this week. So October 26th, if you had a PSP, you could pick up ATV Off-Road Fury Pro. I guess, if that's something you like.
Uh, Again, just from looking, I'm not sure if it's the particular one from that, but at least sort of working a bit more with the concept of racing, but you can choose different vehicles and the interesting gameplay that can come from that.
Sure. Also on October 26th, if you had a PC, you could pick up Guild Wars Nightfall.
Oh my gosh, it's Guild Wars at night.
Yes. Again, I have never played any of the Guild Wars stuff, so I couldn't tell you if this was any good or not.
Yeah.
Also on October 26th, if you were in Australia and you had a PC, you could pick up Jaws Unleashed.
On the one hand, I'm a little bit surprised it took that long, but also the other hand, it is also Australia. And on the additional hand, it's the question of, oh man, how supposedly good and or bad would it supposedly be for getting this game over in Australia?
Also on October 26th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yes, I'm supposing. I'm mostly just kind of wondering, like, what either deadline and or particular thing needed to be filled up. It's like, dude, I finally got Rocco Soccer Robot. It's ready for the Game Boy Advance. It's like, that was supposed to be ready years ago.
Okay. It is the lowest scoring GBA title on both IGN and Metacritic.
Supposedly not too surprising, but also kind of the case of, do I want to play it to see?
IGN gave it a 1.5, GameSpot gave it a 2.2, and it has an average score on Metacritic of 21 out of 100.
Yeah, even despite the fact that it was the case of trying to put a game into the game sort of thing from there, it hardly even stood up to the original, which I'd maybe even have to give them a clap for, like, you failed that spectacularly.
Yeah, that sounds like an impressive failure. Anyway, continuing on. October 30th, if you had a PSP, you could pick up Dungeon Siege Thorn of Agony. Which, okay. I don't know anything about Dungeon
Somewhat
Siege, really.
tracks. Again, on the one hand, it's kind of one of the series that you think, I'm not sure how well would that be on a handheld, but also the case of it with being dungeon crawlery and whatnot, it's like, it probably would work, but nah, not a series I've been into.
Yeah, and the PSP was like roughly equivalent to like a PS2.
Hmm.
Also on October 30th, you probably know more about this game than I do. If you had a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Pokemon Ranger.
Ah, yes. The marvelous game where you destroyed your system by drawing circles.
Okay. I
But
don't.
also the case of never played the specific game myself, but know of the series. And oh boy, it can supposedly be a series if you want to look into it.
Oh, yeah, it says there's a couple of sequels to it. Huh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Moving on to the 31st. If you had a PS2, you could get ATV Off Road Fury 4 if you just
You
hadn't had
know,
enough.
if you weren't able to get the one on the PSP or you wanted it for your PS2.
If you had a Game Boy Advance or Nintendo DS, you could get a game called Cat Scratch, which I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, yeah. The marvelous case that particular cartoons managed to get their own video games, which, yeah, it was a time.
If you had a PSP, you could pick up Death Junior 2 Root of Evil.
Again, somewhat of a series, but just a marvelous case of saw it sitting on the shelf and it's like, I'm not interested.
Okay. I don't remember this at all, but okay. If you had a PSP, also on the 31st, you could pick up Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories.
Ah, yes. Which I think would work out fairly well with the Vice stories with those ones there.
Also on the 31st, if you had a PS2 and you lived in North America, you could pick up Final Fantasy 12.
Which was an experience. Unlike most other Final Fantasies, but also exactly like other Final Fantasies. Which, oh boy, it was a thing.
Also on the 31st, if you had a PSP, you could pick up Killzone Liberation.
Yeah. Again, the particular series of the Killzone, I've not managed to get into that or look into it that much.
I feel like we haven't got a Killzone game in a long time.
Yeah, it was one of the particular ones that got lost in the fallout of the particular games as they went on. It's just the particular third person shooters, if they weren't the super big ones that kept in mind with anything, they just fell off the cliff.
Yeah. Moving on, also on the 31st, if you had a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Conductora? I think that's how you pronounce that. Looks like it's some kind of puzzle game for the DS.
Which looks like Tetris, but isn't like Tetris, and looks like that other particular puzzle that also looks like Tetris, but also isn't like that one.
Yeah. Moving along. If you had a PC, PS2, Xbox, GameCube, Xbox 360, or PlayStation 3, on October 31st, you could go to the store and pick up Need for Speed Carbon.
Which I can supposedly understand, but I question why the carbon? What makes it different than the other Need for Speeds? I question. And also the case of why did they disrespect the toaster? They needed to get it onto that one.
I don't think I ever played this particular Need for Speed. I think this was after I was out of playing them.
Hmm.
Continuing on, still on October 31st, if you had a PC, you could pick up Neverwinter Nights 2.
Yes, but still a slight case of somewhat knowing of the series, but never touching it myself.
Yeah, I know the box to this, I've never played it.
Hmm.
Also on October 31st, if you had a PSP, you could pick up Power Stone Collection.
Yes, which is the super amazing thing and needs to be brought back. And I believe they're supposedly working on that, but we need to wait another couple of months.
Yeah, I would be in. Oh, the arcade version is also set to be re released in 2025 as a part of Capcom Fighting Collection 2.
Hooray! Now we just need to go and get a fighting cabinet.
I'm assuming it's getting released on, like, PlayStation 4 and stuff.
I would not be surprised, but also kind of with how things have been going, they're starting to make the switch over from the 4 to the 5. So, yeah, some things might get left in the lurch.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia, it is set to release for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on May 16th.
Hooray!
Moving along, the final game that we have, also on October 31st, if you had a Game Boy Advance or a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Tom and Jerry Tales.
Yeah, which some of you are probably thinking, wait a minute, isn't that ancient? And good people, I'd like to inform you, it's prehistoric, but it still exists.
So, fun fact, I had a Three Stooges game for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. No, around that time, the Three Stooges tried to make the comeback with the live action movies that they did.
I don't remember how I got it. I just know that I had it, and it was basically just a couple of mini games.
Yeah, that kind of tracks.
Yeah.
Like, they could supposedly shove a story into that, but there's also the case of, do you really need to? Like, it's the Three Stooges. Can you really mess that up so bad?
Yeah. Anyway, let us move on to the episode. So, okay. We start off with Veronica showing the photo of their suspect to one of the victims, whose name... Oh, bollocks, what was her name? Bollocks. Claire, that's it. But she doesn't recognize him. In criminology class, Veronica does a case study of Weevil, and the class enjoys it. After the study, Veronica tells Weevil that she is dating Logan, and he reacts negatively. Veronica then walks into Mars Investigations and finds Cyrus O'Dell and his wife talking with Keith. While Veronica herself does some detective work, Keith informs Veronica that Dean O'Dell's stepson is dying, and that he wants Keith to find the boy's biological father. At Mercer's party, two masked men enter and steal everyone's valuables, including the necklace that Lily gave Veronica. Wallace is failing his mechanical engineering class, a subject in which he wanted to major. Meanwhile, Keith tracks down the husband, and Veronica accuses Weevil of robbing the party. At the meeting, Dean O'Dell's wife asks the ex-husband to give her son a bone marrow transplant. Meanwhile, Sheriff Lamb arrests Weevil for the robbery, which basically tells us that he didn't do it because Sheriff Lamb is an idiot.
Yeah.
Veronica visits Weevil in prison before she decides to look into a pizza delivered to Weevil's house. Sheriff Lamb and a detective from the LAPD tell Keith that the ex-husband has disappeared before accusing Keith in the ex-husband's disappearance. Keith thinks that Dean O'Dell was involved in this disappearance, but when he visits the dean, it turns out that the dean's wife and stepson have disappeared to a hospital in Mexico, presumably taking the ex-husband with them. Wallace visits a tutor who charges him for a mysterious study guide before going back for just buying the answers. Veronica notices the masks being used in a short film, but they were stolen. Keith and O'Dell are in Mexico. He reveals that he lied to Keith about their whereabouts, and they are actually in a local hospital in Southern California. Veronica tracks down the casino robber to a volunteer police officer. She has evidence, and the police come and arrest him. However, they don't find the necklace. At the hospital, Keith hesitates when O'Dell asks him what he would do to save Veronica. Veronica gets her necklace back from the perpetrator's daughter when she sees her wearing it. Because he gave bone marrow, the ex-husband now has a much more favorable divorce settlement. Wallace uses the answers he purchased and is called in to see the teacher after. Veronica tracks down the suspect in the photo with Claire, Wang Yi, but his roommate tells Veronica that he is Claire's boyfriend. So, Mr. David, what do we think of this episode?
It's interesting with the couple particular ideas that they messed with the interactions with Veronica, speaking with Weevil through the class project, also looking over with her either somewhat believing that, or acting of Weevil supposedly acting, but getting information or whatnot from there. It was interesting to see, and also kind of the issue that Wallace is running into, just the case of, ew, things are duh, somewhat
Yes.
understandable, but also the case of ugh,
Yes, Wallace has gotten himself into a bit of trouble.
ugh. And
Yes.
I'm not really sure what supposedly thinking with what Keith's going through with a bit of issue with the divorce or whatnot, or proceedings that he was sort of looking into with the last case going in from there, but sort of thinking, what direction are they taking with this? Is it going to be the one way or the other way, or should I be concerned with the third way that this could supposedly go?
Yes. I would argue that this overall, for the overarching story that we're telling so far, isn't like a super important episode, but it is kind of
Mm.
just like a fun one-off little mystery to solve before we move into the episode next week, which will have a lot more kind of importance in the overall narrative.
Yeah, for any bits like that. And it's the case of they still give a couple particular characters interesting stuff to do. Name at the moment is escaping me, but the lawyer that usually works with them, uh, having some comedy sort of routines while they're working in the office during the start of the episode was fun to see.
Yes, yeah. So if there's nothing else about this episode, next week we'll be discussing high infidelity. Okay.
Mm.
So this episode is going to feature the return of Harmony. I don't know if you remember her, but Keith worked on her case where she suspected that her husband was cheating on her.
Uh,
Rosa's character. No, wait, no, I don't want to tell that. There's going to be some other important things that happen in this. Veronica, Piz, and some other people are going to go bowling. Um,
Sounds
and
like fun.
and Keith is gonna maybe kind of do something not so great.
Oh boy. Like supposedly work related stuff or like outside of work related stuff?
Little column A, little column B.
Oh boy.
All right. So until then, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.